Hi everybody. Today we are dealing with the contributions of Rollo May in the field of psychology. Here we will discuss the life of Rollo May, his theory of personality, and we will evaluate his theory. So let's look into its details. First of all, let us know the biography of Rollo May. Rollo May was born April 21st, 1909 in Ada, Ohio. His childhood was not particularly pleasant. His parents didn't get along and eventually divorced. And his sister had a psychotic breakdown also. After a brief stint at Michigan State, he attended Oberlin College in Ohio, where he received his bachelor's degree. After graduation, he went to Greece, where he taught English at Anatolia College for 3 years. When he returned to the US, he entered Union Theological Seminary and became friends with one of his teachers, Paul Tillich, the existential theologian, who would have a profound effect on his thinking. May received his BD in 1938. May suffered from tuberculosis and had to spend 3 years in a sanatorium. This was probably the turning point of his life. While he faced the possibility of death, he also filled his empty hours with reading. Among the literature he read, there were writings of Soren Kierkegaard, the Danish religious writer who inspired much of the existential movement and provided the inspiration for May's theory. He went on to study psychoanalysis at a White Institute, where he met people such as Harry Stack Sullivan and Eric Fromm. And finally, he went to Columbia University in New York, where in 1949 he received the first PhD in clinical psychology that institution ever awarded. Then in 1950, he published his first book, The Meaning of Anxiety. Then he published the book Love and Will, which is very influential in the year 1969. He is often associated with humanistic psychology and existentialist philosophy. And alongside, Viktor Frankl was a major proponent of existential psychotherapy. He died in the year 1994 in Tiburon, California. This was a brief biography of Rollo May. Then let's know what existential psychology is. Existential psychology or existentialism has its root in the 19th century writing of Danish philosophers Soren Kierkegaard and later Friedrich Nietzsche. They started the existentialism with basic realities of people's existence or Dasein. Dasein is a German word which means existence in English. Thus, existentialism is concerned with ontology. What is ontology? Ontology is the study of the nature of being. May described as being is a process in which we ourselves are the source of change. As we struggle as individuals to realize our potential, that is, as we try to become what we truly are. So, existentialism. Let us know the definition of existentialism. Existentialism is a philosophical theory or approach which emphasizes the existence of individual person as a free and responsible agent determining their own development through acts of the will. Rollo May has proposed three modes of being in the world, that is Umwelt, Mitwelt and Eigenwelt. Umwelt, it is a world that includes biological needs, drives and instincts. This is the natural environment for animals and humans. The second one is Mitwelt. The second mode of being in the world is Mitwelt. This is the world of interrelationships. It includes the meaning of things that we share with others. For example, love can never be totally understood by focusing only on connections with the biological world of lust and sex. It also depends upon such Mitwelt factors like personal decision and commitment to the other person. And the third mode of being in the world is Eigenwelt. In this world, it is the self relation to itself. Eigenwelt involves self-awareness and self-relatedness. It occurs when I become aware of the impact that another person has on me, or aware of what a flower means to me. Without Eigenwald, the world would be intellectually arid and impersonal, which means barren. These are the three modes of being in the world which was proposed by Rollo May. Then he proposed the theory of personality. According to May, the development process centers on the physical and psychological ties between us and our parents and parental substitutes like clergy, friends, teachers, etc. He pointed out our physical dependency on our mother, which begins when we are fed as fetus through the umbilical cord. This tie is severed at birth, but physical dependency remains. As we grow older, physical dependence tends to subside and psychological dependence often does not. This was actually a major problem for me. He said that the way in which we handle it will determine in large degree whether we will move toward maturity and personal growth. Thus, the conflict is between every human being's need to struggle toward enlarged self-awareness, maturity, freedom and responsibility, and his tendency to remain a child and cling to the protection of parents and parental substitutes. In this battle of freedom, we progress through several stages of development. Rollo May introduced 4 stages of development. First one is innocent, second one is rebellion, third one is ordinary, and the fourth one is creative. Let's look into the detail of each stage of development. The first one is innocent. The first stage is simply our innocence as infants with no consciousness of self. The pre-egoic, the pre-self-conscious stage of the infant. The innocent is pre-moral, infants with no consciousness of self, that is neither bad nor good. Then comes the rebellion stage, whereby we seek to establish our inner strength. This struggle typically takes place at age 2 or 3 and again during adolescence. The childhood and adolescent stage of developing one's ego or self-consciousness by means of contrast with adults, from the no of the 2-year-old to the no way of the teenager. The third stage is ordinary consciousness of self. At this point, we are capable of understanding some of our errors and of recognizing some of our prejudices. We are also capable of learning from our mistakes and assuming responsibility for our actions. The normal adult ego, conventional and a little boring perhaps, they have learned responsibility but find it too demanding and so seek refuge in conformity and traditional values. And the fourth stage signifies maturity. This stage is called creative stage. Here the individual will transcend the usual limits of consciousness and will be able to do the truth without distortion. In this stage, an individual will also known as authentic adult, the existential stage beyond ego and self-actualizing. This is the person who, accepting destiny, faces anxiety with courage. Then let us know the concept of love and will by Rollo May. Many of May's unique ideas can be found in the book Love and Will. In his efforts at reconciling Freud and the existentialist, he turned his attention to motivation. His basic motivational construct is a daimonic. The daimonic is the entire system of motives different for each individual. It is composed of specific motives called daimons. The word daimon is from the Greek and means little god. It comes to us as demon with a very negative connotation, but originally a daimon could be bad or good. One of the most important concepts for May is will, the ability to organize oneself in order to achieve one's goals. For May, one of the most important daemons is eros. Eros is love, which is not meant sex. Eros is a good thing until it takes over the personality, until we become obsessed with it. May had 4 descriptions of love, and they are sex, eros, philia and agape. Sex. Sex is the biological drives that can be satisfied by engaging in sexual intercourse. The same way, eating a meal that can satisfy the hunger drive, which both can be triggered by the need and the availability of an object that will satisfy the need. And the second one is eros. For me, one of the most important demons is eros. Eros is love, which is not sex. Eros is a good thing until it takes over the personality, until we become obsessed with it. And the third is philia. Philia is the third of love, which is a friendship or a brotherly love. According to May, eros cannot last for long without philia because the tension of continuous attraction and passion would be too great. Philia is the relaxation in the presence of the beloved, which accepts the other's being as being. It is simply liking to be with the other, liking to rest with the other, liking the rhythm of the walk, the voice, the whole being of the other. And the fourth one is agape. Agape is the fourth type of loving, which May states it is the unselfishness of concern for one's partner and the aspect of love that is unconditional. These are the four descriptions which was put forward by Rollo May about love. Then let us know the concept of anxiety and guilt. According to May, feelings of anxiety stem from loneliness and emptiness. Like Freud, he believed that anxiety signals an internal conflict differs from Freud. For Freud, the conflict was nearly always sexual in nature. To reduce unpleasant feeling, the anxiety is generated. For May, anxiety is not simply an unpleasant feeling. It is the human being's basic reaction to a danger, to his experience, or to some values he identifies with his anxiety. According to May, anxiety occurs as the individual attempts to realize his or her potentialities. For example, a man's initiating move toward a friendship have been rejected. Here, he faces a fundamental conflict between being and non-being. He can try to understand the reasons for the rejection by questioning the other person, or he can avoid asking questions that may prove embarrassing. So, these fundamental choices generates anxiety. Kierkegaard describes this feeling of anxiety as the dizziness of freedom. Like anxiety, guilt is also an ontological characteristic of human existence, but ontological guilt does not occur because of the person fails to act in terms of cultural prohibitions as Freud thought. It occurs because an individual who can choose fails to do so. Such a person fails to act in terms of his central need in life, that is the fulfillment of his potentialities. May clarified the meaning of ontological anxiety further by dividing it into two components, that is normal anxiety and neurotic anxiety. What is normal anxiety? Normal anxiety is anxiety that it is proportionate to the threat to our values. It does not involve repression and can be confronted constructively on the conscious level. Then comes the neurotic anxiety. In contrast to the normal anxiety, it is a reaction that is disproportionate to the threat and it involves repression. Neurotic anxiety develops when we are unable to address our normal anxiety. Normal anxiety arising at the time of the actual crisis in our growth and the threat to our values. These were the ideas about anxiety and guilt according to May. Then comes the assessment techniques of Rollo May. May maintained that existential analysis is an attitude rather than a set of psychotherapeutic techniques. It involves a stress on understanding the special meanings of the person's existence. In the pursuit of this understanding, the therapist may derive new techniques or utilizing existing ones. Thus, the therapist may employ dream analysis, free association, and transference as to as the Freudians, or personality measures as do the Rogerians. But the therapist seek to interpret dreams and symbols to ferret out their meaning for the patient's existence now and their implications for his or her future. Thus, May's approach to understanding patients was characterized by flexibility and versatility. Techniques vary from patient to patient and from time to time during the therapeutic process. His orientation was eclectic, but made systematic use of each selected procedure to shed light on the person's unique potentialities and existence. Then let's evaluate Rollo May's theory. When we evaluate Rollo May's theory on the criteria of comprehensiveness, like the other humanistic psychologists, May's primary concern was to develop a model of positive growth as a means of elevating human suffering. Thus, he focused principally on understanding abnormal behavior and changing it. His position is more comprehensive than those of Rogers and Maslow. However, because he integrated psychoanalytic and existential principle more thoroughly into his theory and presented a more detailed treatment of the development process. In addition, May sought a compromise with American behaviorism and its assumptions. In some of his earlier work, he attempted to utilize learning principles and experiments to increase our understanding of the meaning of anxiety, although he saw this approach as limited. Thus, May's system is relatively comprehensive, especially when compared with the other major humanistic positions. Then, when we consider the precision and testability of May's theory is quite imprecise and difficult to test. Terms such as being, potentiality, and ontological guilt are vague and nearly impossible to define accurately. In addition, the theory consists of a series of disjointed and unconnected propositions that do not lend themselves readily to scientific inquiry. Then the empirical validity of Rollo May's theory. Empirical support for the theory is limited. Much of the evidence is based on clinical observation in therapy sessions and is largely unsystematic and retrospective. Research on May's position is still in an exploratory stage. Then the heuristic value. May's position has proved highly stimulating to investigators in the humanistic psychology movement and to members of the public, but for the most part, his efforts have been ignored by traditional investigators within psychology. Then the criteria, when we consider the applied value criteria, May's theory has been fruitfully applied to problems in areas such as education, pastoral counseling, family life, and religion. These are the things that we can be observed while we evaluate this Rollo May's theory. These were the books which I referred to get this information about Rollo May's theories. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you all get a brief idea about the contributions of Rollo May. Thank you.